Thank you very much for coming this evening. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Colin Bogart, and I work for the Los Angeles County Bicycle Coalition. We're a nonprofit bike advocacy group. It's been around for about 10 years, and we received a grant a couple years ago from the LA County Department of Public Health, and part of that grant is and includes working with the city of Glendale, working to make Glendale a better, safer place to ride a bike and walk. And the name of the project that we've been working on here in Glendale for the past year and a half or so is called Safe and Healthy Streets. And it's largely about getting the city, drafting a set of policy recommendations for the city to adopt to make Glendale more bike and pedestrian friendly. But it's also about projects such as this. For those of you who maybe don't know, this is the final event of our Glendale Bike Month promotion. Yay! We're very happy. In case you didn't know, May is National Bike Month, and the city of Glendale made a formal proclamation at the beginning of the month declaring it May Bike Month in Glendale. We've had a whole series of events this month. We've had movie screenings, documentary screenings, lectures. We did 2 bike rides, a bike fair with the Glendale Transportation Management Associates downtown. We did another bike fair type event up in northern Glendale. It's been a really successful month, and it's been a lot of fun. And a lot of you I saw at some of these other events also. In particular, I want to make sure I do not forget to thank the Glendale Library. The Glendale Library has been fantastic in donating this great space multiple times over the course of this month and enabling us and being a partner with us in making this whole month of events happen. With relation to the Safe and Healthy Streets project, if you're a resident of Glendale, if you work in Glendale, if you visit Glendale frequently and you're interested in this project, if you haven't already signed up on my mailing list at the table by the door, please do so before you leave tonight, and I can add you to a mailing list. There's a lot coming up in the not-too-distant future. Actually, the city of Glendale is gearing up to revise its bicycle master plan. It's slated to begin that process roughly around July, and the plan is to have a draft version of it completed by January. And I'm very excited about that because there's some really good ideas being floated to be included in that plan, and we're going to be looking to get input from the community to make that plan as good as it possibly can be, and that means you all to participate in that. So if you're on my email list, it's going to make it a lot easier for me to let you know when something's coming up. The other thing I wanted to mention is, as I said, the LA County Bike Coalition is a nonprofit group, and what we have coming up on Sunday, June 6th, if you haven't heard about it already, is the LA River Ride. This is the Bike Coalition's annual fundraising event. All rides start and end in Griffith Park at the Autry Museum. Rides range in length from 15 miles up to 100 miles. The thing that we're most excited about this ride, in addition to the fact that this is our 10th annual river ride, is the fact that the Glendale Community and Parks Department signed on as a major sponsor of this event. And as a result of that sponsorship, kids 12 and under can do the ride for free. And it's not just Glendale kids. This is all kids. Anybody who shows up with a kid 12 and under can do the family ride, which again is about 15 miles. We also have a special little kids ride for kids who are like, say, 6 or younger, for example. And so we're very excited about this, that kids 12 and under ride for free, and we want lots of people to come with their kids to this event. So what I would say is, if you didn't already grab one of these, we have brochures on the back table. Grab one of these. If you have kids, if your friends have kids, if your neighbors have kids, if your kids have kids, give them one of these brochures and say, hey, you can do this ride for free. What's not to like about that, right? And then also there's a bunch of other swag back there. I've got stuff left over from Bike to Work Day. We got Cliff Bars, patch kits, and other pocket guides. So feel free to grab any and all of that stuff on your way out. So, as I said, this is the final event for Bike Month, And I'm very happy about that tonight's presenter is here tonight. He's a great guy. As part of the Safe and Healthy Streets project, we actually took 2 different delegations of city officials down to the city of Long Beach and took a bike tour of what's going on in Long Beach. In case you haven't heard, Long Beach is fast becoming the cutting-edge city in Southern California for bike improvements. And everybody, at least locally, if not nationally, is paying close attention to what Long Beach is doing and taking a cue. We took 2 delegations of city officials from the city of Glendale down to Long Beach, and Charlie Gandy led us on a guided bike tour of the city so we could see firsthand what they were doing down there. Both trips were fantastic, real eye-openers for everybody involved and very inspiring. And then we got to thinking, yeah, gee, it would be really great if we could bring Long Beach to Glendale. So I called up Charlie and said, hey, Charlie, would you be willing to come on up to Glendale and give a talk during our Bike Month promotion? And he was happy to do it. He was excited to do it. Charlie Gandy is the mobility coordinator for the city of Long Beach, and he's basically he's spearheading all that's being done in Long Beach. He is the founder of the Texas Bicycle Coalition, which if any of you have ridden a bike in Texas, that's no small feat. And he's also been co-founder in a number of other advocacy groups, such as the Thunderhead Alliance, which is a group that helps bike advocacy groups all across the country get started. And it's now called the Alliance for Biking and Walking, so they've changed their name. But they're a fantastic group. Charlie basically relocated from Texas to Long Beach to work on this project on invitation. And he's basically here tonight to talk about what's going on in Long Beach and how it relates to Glendale and how it relates to cities all over the place, because what they're doing there is applicable, I think, virtually everywhere and has application beyond just Long Beach. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Charlie Gandy.
So that was fun, huh? Colin is a colleague. He and I get to work as change agents in Southern California and through a grant that the county has, a place grant. And it's really exciting because he's a community organizer of the first rate. And to have him as an asset in your community should be exciting to you because he's kind of a rare breed. Barack Obama graduated from the same community organizing school that Colin Bogart has. And it's all about listening. It's all about sharing state-of-the-art ideas, stirring up thinking, which is a rare opportunity that we have as citizens to actually participate in the intellectual side of governance. And so that's what we're doing in Long Beach, and I intend to talk to you about that tonight. I'm a recovering politician from Texas. He didn't tell you that a long time ago I served in the Texas House of Representatives. And so I know what it's like to be on that side of the conversation, and I know how pitifully unpowerful bicyclists usually are in the political process. It may be different in Glendale. You can share that with me, but generally speaking, independent types that don't like to go to meetings and aren't directly involved in the political process usually are on the outside of the conversation. But when they organize their voices, when they come together as a small group of committed citizens interested in changing the world, who am I quoting? Margaret Mead, right? That's what usually happens. That's how things get done. When groups about this size come together with a shared vision of where they want to go, in a town like Glendale or in a town like Austin, Texas, where I spent most of my adult life, or a place like Long Beach, California, significant
change can happen. And I happen to think, because of our economic turmoil, because our winning formulas are broken in many cities around the country, including Long Beach, that we're open to some fresh ideas. We're open to some fresh thinking about how our cities are going to function. And we, being us as stewards of our communities, you know, I look around the room, we're all in our late 20s and early 30s here, right? The truth is, our parents have had their turn, and it's not our kids' turn yet to be stewards of the community. It's us. And I happen to think, as a 51-year-old recovering politician, that that's a pretty good place to be, because I'm a bicyclist. I happen to think that bicycling is part of the solution for a lot of the urban ills that we find in places like Austin, Texas, or Long Beach, California, or maybe Glendale, California. I happen to think that those of us that have been to Europe and seen that bicycling can be a very healthy part of the transportation mix, and why it is overlooked in the U.S., why it is sidelined as a toy, why it's not respected as an alternative. There's some good reasons for that. We're a Darwinian community. And the bigger the better, the faster, the most expensive. Not only is that our status, but that's what we generally want to thrive for. Many of us, by the time we get to age 45 or 50 or 55, are discovering that maybe that's not the smartest approach. Maybe that $500 a month that we're spending on that automobile, particularly for young people, is a burden that ought to be at least considered. And then the inverse is true. How can we, as stewards of the community, design in our period, the next 20 years, a place that nurtures us as citizens, nurtures us as local customers, nurtures us as people who want to put roots down in a place and make an investment in that place, and not necessarily be tethered to an automobile to do that. That's, generally speaking, what our generation is questioning. And I'm talking about us 50-year-olds. The 30-year-olds aren't buying cars at nearly the rate that we did. They're discovering that they can carry on an urban lifestyle, a car-light lifestyle. They may have a car, but they don't use it for their day-to-day activities. Or they move to a place and they borrow a car, they rent a car when they need to. They're discovering that an urban lifestyle is a high-quality lifestyle. And the inverse is true. A suburban lifestyle, or one that is built around automobiles exclusively, has a lot to be desired. Consequently, that's the conversation that happened about 3 years ago in Long Beach, and the City Council made a conscious decision to go a different way. They decided that they wanted to take this bicycling thing that they had seen effective as a transportation tool in Europe. They had seen it applied in places like Seattle and Portland and, you know, the places, Madison, Wisconsin, and elsewhere. Not only did the sky not fall, but they increased the number of people riding bikes. They actually reduced the number of crashes related to bike crashes as those motorists became familiar with interacting with bicyclists. And so as the numbers went up, it flatlined in terms of their crash rates. And that said that maybe these concepts that we see applied in Europe successfully and in some of these early progressive communities could be applied in places such as Long Beach. So they started looking around, and they said, you know, we're a city council that is interested in this stuff. We have citizens that are interested in this stuff, but we don't have the money in place, nor do we have the expertise in place to make this happen. And so they hired people to do that. Right now, we've raised in the last 3 years $17 million for bicycle and pedestrian projects, and I'm going to outline how we're spending that money here in a moment. And as Colin pointed out, we, as the first mover in this arena, in this part of the state, are attracting quite a bit of attention. We're attracting attention from people who have companies that want to move to places that their employees can carry on an active, healthy lifestyle. We're attracting attention from companies such as Yamaha. I can tell the story now. They're interested in bringing their pedal-assisted electric bikes into the U.S. Right now they sell hundreds of thousands of these in Japan and other places, and they're interested in bringing them into the U.S. because they see places like Long Beach are getting serious about changing their transportation mix. And pedal-assisted electric bikes work very well for those that don't have the same level of confidence that maybe we have in pedaling a bike across a busy street, but with electric assist, they get the boost that they need. So Yamaha and other companies are partnering up with us to do test marketing of their products in Long Beach because they can see that is where progressive markets are developing. Let me start telling these stories. By the way, am I here in the right place? Is this what you came to listen to and to develop? All right, good. All right. It's important to check in, I think, every once in a while. The city made a political commitment to be a great bike city. That has caused things to happen in the city that we never expected, such as Patrick Vogel, who's a gifted artist, made a $30,000 contribution to the city of Long Beach with this artwork. The city last fall adopted this slogan, that we want to be the most bicycle-friendly city in America. And Patrick was moved by that, and he said, if you'll let me, and he had done this type of artwork before, so we knew what he was talking about. He said, I'd like to make a gift to the city of this artwork to put on City Hall. And we said, yes, of course. So we put that up there, and we've adopted those three items, optimism, localism, and authenticity, as our key selling points for this campaign. We're pretty optimistic about the future in Long Beach as a beach city. We recognize that in the DNA of Long Beach, we have a beach town, a town that, as you know, the weather is perfect, the land is flat, it dead ends at the beach and at the harbor, therefore we don't have a lot of through traffic through there, and so we have a high quality of living that can be, that's even better, where we have designed facilities to accommodate bicyclists and that you can move around safely and conveniently on a bike. Patrick Vogel was inspired by that. He was inspired by the optimism stuff. He was inspired by the localism stuff, because we've decided that we want to privilege those of us that live there, that shop there, that go to school there, versus those who would drive through there on their way to somewhere else. And that's a sea shift in change in priorities, because in the past we have turned over entire community development decisions to traffic engineers who have been instructed to push cars through this place as efficiently as possible. Consequently, we have, in many cases in Long Beach, very efficient corridors that move cars through efficiently, but it's dead on either side. And it's a death-defying feat to get across those streets, because they really are almost unending rivers of cars moving through without respect to what's going on either side. Consequently, that paradigm has changed in Long Beach. We recognize that, and I'll show you examples of this, if we slow down traffic strategically, meaning in certain places it's not going to be it's not going to flow through at 40 miles per hour, it's going to flow through at maybe 10 miles per hour. That when we slow down traffic like that, we can nurture growth on either side, nurture economic development on either side of that street. And the inverse is true. We know that when cars are moving through a space fast, it's not an attractive place to develop a restaurant or anything else adjacent to it. And then the last part is that authenticity. It is the city of Long Beach deciding that it's not going to be Los Angeles, is not going to be Orange County. It's looking to distinguish itself as a high quality of living beach town. It's also interested in making a conscious decision to be an innovator. TED, the Technology, Entertainment, and Design event happens now in Long Beach. And we see ourselves as an incubator for fresh, innovative thinking. And related to bikes, and I'm going to show you how that unveils related to bikes. We see Long Beach as big enough to be noticed and big enough to be important enough to pay attention to, but small enough to be smart and nimble. And that's a competitive advantage that we have and that Glendale has over Los Angeles and cities in Orange County that plod along and don't move very fast. So we've decided that we're going to take an entrepreneurial approach to what's next, our new winning formula in Long Beach, and those are some of the tenets of that. The people that support this are on this page. The guy up at the top there on the far left is the most conservative city council member that we have, and a lot of this stuff is happening in his district. And when he gets the letters from people that say, why did you take that lane out and put that bike lane in? Aren't you slowing down traffic through here? His response is, yes, we are. And we've made a decision that it's more important for us to have customers be able to get across that street than for you to save 10 seconds in adding a third lane. And he has made his choice. And that is the political will that we have backing us up. 100% of the city council in Long Beach either rides bikes or is at least bicycle friendly. There's not anybody that is saying that we're moving in the wrong direction. The guy next to him, the tall guy up there, is Mark Bixby. If you know anything about Long Beach, you know that everything's named Bixby. His family used to own the entire city, and he's probably one of, if not the wealthiest guy in Long Beach. He's also a super volunteer on the bike campaign because as one of the biggest real estate owners in the city, he recognizes that this is part of Long Beach's new winning formula, an active, healthy lifestyle at the beach where people from Glendale will come down on the is it the LA River or the San Gabriel River, and spend your money there and then come back. That's the plan. And then we have assorted hippies and others that buy into this, and I say that teasingly because I know most of those guys up there. Here are our customers. Here's who we're looking to accommodate in the public space, and who we see ourselves as stewards of this. We're aggressively embracing the fixie community, meaning 17-year-olds that want to ride bikes with fixed gears and no brakes. These folks, I'll move through these. Guys that need to lose some weight. Alice is a triathlete, lives in Long Beach, and can whip most of us on a bike, running, or swimming. And she's one of those gregarious seniors that won't stop talking about her enthusiasm for active, healthy lifestyle. And that is one of the things, that's one of the foundations that we're building on in Long Beach, and that is people like April that really do set the pace for quality, active living lifestyles. And then our house eccentrics and people that we are embracing, including you, man. Will you show that helmet that you showed up with? Look at this. I saw her walk in. Anybody got a helmet like that? I appreciate that sort of art. That's good. More nice people. So I mentioned that bicycling is a part of the culture in Long Beach. It's been suppressed by people's fear of riding because the streets, frankly, haven't been designed in a long time to accommodate those people. But here's our winning team. Starting on the left, that's our city manager, then council member, council member, council member, council member, council member, council member. Tony Cruz is our bike ambassador. In the green shirt, that's Patrick Vogel, the artist, me, and another council member. We have developed community pride around this bike campaign. Community pride. Isn't that an interesting concept? When many people are cynical about their, and not to say that Long Beach has everything worked out. Trust me, it's a dysfunctional place in a lot of ways. However, what we're noticing is that this bicycle thing is a symbol of differentiation, of quality of life, of active, healthy living. I come from Austin, where the Chamber of Commerce adopted officially the slogan that separates it from Houston and Dallas and everywhere anywhere else. Their slogan is "Keep Austin Weird." Have you heard that before? Anybody? What does that mean? That means keep Austin different. We don't want to be Dallas. We don't want to be Houston. We want to be weird. If being weird in Texas is everything that they're not, then we'll take that. That's the attitude that they have. And in Long Beach, they're attempting that same similar voice. It's really just a different voice. But it happens to be a similar voice to Manhattan Beach or Redondo Beach or Huntington Beach or other beach cities that have developed that lifestyle nicely. This is our political will. These are the people that are backing us up and giving us the license to go out there and challenge the status quo. When that group 3 years ago made this political decision to become a great bike city, the city manager put this woman on collecting some money. Her name's Sumi Gant. In the first 2 years, she had raised $12 million. She had hired me to come in to help spend that money, and she had gotten on the map as one of the bronze level bike-friendly communities with the League of American Bicyclists. And based on that, Long Beach has become the 23rd, the number 23 in the nation on the Bike Magazine list. It put us on the map. It made us a contender in that conversation of great bike cities. And this great bike city thing is all about economic development. It is all about us celebrating the bike as a symbol of quality of life. And Sumi is the one that has raised that money. She's gone after that money, by the way. It's the same pots of money that have been available to every other city in Southern California. But without the political will backing you up, that's the reason why Glendale hasn't received that money in the past. But based on the conversations that I've had with staff people here, my sense of that is that the political climate has changed in Glendale, and you'll be more likely to receive those funds. And I'm going to show you how those funds are being applied. First of all, though, we went and benchmarked against some of the great cities along the east and west coast. Davis, California, taught us a little bit about trails. They've got an excellent trail system. In San Francisco, notice in the upper right corner here, that's an alley that during the day serves as outdoor seating, but at night it's cleared off, and that's when they do deliveries and trash pickup and everything else. So they repurpose the street throughout the day to accommodate the needs. You may or may not be familiar with bike boxes and techniques used such as this in Portland. Other examples from Portland, and in New York. And I'll show you the protected bike facilities that we've designed directly from the experience in Europe, but then applied in New York on 8th and 9th Avenues with the protected bike facilities. Anybody been there, by the way? Have anybody seen this? You have? Okay. That's a little dark, but this is part of our design team. One of the reasons that Long Beach has been successful is that we have decided to move in this direction, and for those that would stand in the way or not be completely supportive, we've built around them. We have professionals in our engineering department that we can't count on to think independently or to test the edges of what's new. But this guy, Rock Miller, over on the far right, is one of our consulting engineers. And so using the existing pots of money that we have, but repurposing Rock and others to look at the bicycle stuff in Long Beach as opposed to just cars, has given us an end round, frankly, around those who would be in opposition to us, and has offered us this opportunity to become an innovative place, because Rock is one of the best in the nation, and he's the one that has come up with some of the more creative stuff that I'll show you in just a moment. Jeff Mapes has been through town. Jeff is a political reporter for the Oregonian in Portland, and he wrote a book about this whole thing, Pedaling Revolution, and is talking about a little bit about what Colin pointed out before, and that is there's this second tier of cities that Long Beach is a part of that is benchmarking against the Portland, Seattles, and New Yorks of the world, and are saying, we think we can do in 3 to 5 years what it took Portland 15 to do. And when they look at that, they say, yeah, you're probably right, because they were the early adopter. They were the ones that were pioneering this stuff. we're able to build on their shoulders to match what they're doing and move forward aggressively. New York's done that with 200 miles of new bike lanes in the last 3 years. Long Beach had 100 miles of facilities at the start of this year. We're adding 50 miles this year, and we'll be adding another 50 miles next year. So we're moving aggressively on the agenda, and he's documented it in this book, Pedaling Revolution. So as you can see, all those lines, the solid lines are done and are bike facilities. The dotted lines are planned to be done and will be completed within the next 2 years, creating a complete network of either protected or separated facilities, bike lanes, or sharrows. And I'll outline what each one of those is. It's a pretty straightforward, first of all, just starting with bike lanes and standard stuff. Here's our construction map. Everything in red is being done. That'll all be completed, not in July of 2010, but now in September. We're bureaucrats, and it takes longer than we expected, but it's and by the way, this is a combination of specific projects down there on the bottom. I'll show you what those are in a moment. But these up at the top, like that diagonal across there, those are all resurfacing projects where all we're doing is saying, if you're putting a fresh surface down, let's look at how we organize those stripes, so that when we put those fresh stripes down, if we've got room for a bike lane, let's do it, and it costs us nothing additional just to simply move the stripes around in the final part of that project. So bike projects, simple projects such as this, we've noticed that as we do the bling, and I'm about to describe what that is, that doing bread and butter bike lane projects like this are routine now. We're not having any blowback at all from neighborhoods putting in standard bike lanes, and that's because we've raised the conversation up, and people, we've tested that concept. Are we going to be the most bike-friendly city in the nation or not? If so, then we're going to. These are the bones of that infrastructure, and generally speaking, we have, with that political will, we'll still have NIMBY arguments from here from time to time, but we are able to push through that because the overwhelming support for the bike network and elements of it are in place and are tested regularly. We're testing bike boxes such as this one. We're resurfacing both the LA River and the San Gabriel River throughout the entire town. And then we're putting in protected bike lanes such as this. This is a European model. Here's one designed in Paris, another in Barcelona. I'll show you what we're about to do. And then back to Manhattan. Essentially, in our downtown area along Broadway and 3rd, all the way from 710 over here on the left to Alamitos on the right, we've got these 3-lane boulevards with parking on either side. Instead of we don't need 3-car travel lanes through this section of downtown. We can do just fine with 2-car travel lanes, and so we're converting one of those lanes, as you can see where those planters are. That used to be a car travel lane. We've pulled the parking off of the sidewalk now, and where that bicyclist is becomes the new protected bike lane. Looking at it in real life, this is Broadway downtown. Notice this lane over here on the far right side. It's going to become something different. See that? I'll go back and look at it again. We're moving that parking simply out one lane and displacing it with the protected bike lane, still leaving 2-car travel lanes out here. So that's a one-way through downtown. Back the opposite direction, look on the left side of this street. Notice the change. And then back one more time. Can you see that? Am I on your way? There you go. Now you'd think that the sky would fall if we'd do something like this. You'd think that something this radical would face overwhelming opposition because it's change. And if we didn't have that overriding political will to do it, something like this probably wouldn't get done because it would be chewed up and spit out by the naysayers. In this case, I have talked to every business along this route, and there's a few residences that live along this way. We've talked to them, and surprisingly enough, not only on this project but on other projects, we're discovering that those that actually live there are very appreciative of this sort of thing. They want to see the traffic slowed down a little bit along Broadway and 3rd. They think that there's too many bicyclists on the sidewalk now anyway, and if we're providing a safe facility for them in the street, it will make for a safer, more pleasant sidewalk. And then cyclists are seeing this as an invitation to go for a ride. And so, yeah, we haven't put this in yet. We've got a contractor on board now, and we're going to start construction in about 2 weeks, and it'll be completed by midsummer. We expect there to be blowback from commuters, some commuters, just as there is on every project that we do, that people perceive that we're taking their space. And it's been our experience that after about 2 weeks, all that goes away and the project shakes out into something people are familiar with, and then we move forward. This is a pilot project, and it may fail. It may not work. But I expect our experience to be that of New York City, where when they put this project, similar project in on 8th and 9th Avenues in Manhattan, they noticed that their crash rates went down 56%, meaning the number of car-bike crashes decreased 56% over the previous year. Consequently, safety trumps everything else. If we've got a safe condition out there with a facility that supports those of us that would ride bikes, and in fact invites people to ride bikes to that place, then we've got a winning combination here, and we'll do more of this stuff. Because that's exactly Portland's experience. They've used facilities such as this, bike boulevards and everything else that are European designs that people thought may not work. And in some cases, these designs were tested in the U.S. in the 70s and did fail. And we've learned from those failures, and we've learned from the European experience, and we're coming back with facilities that have protected left turn signals now at each one of these intersections so that we can interact with cars relatively safe. This is a sophisticated downtown facility, however. We're not trying to link an elementary school to the neighborhood. We're not trying to run 7-year-olds unprotected on this. This is a downtown place generally designed for urban cyclists. Consequently, I think it's going to be a winning project. We're also doing the first bike boulevard in downtown, or in Southern California, in one of our Tony neighborhoods out on the east side. This is Vista Boulevard from Temple to Nieto. It's about 1.5 miles. It's a typical residential street, by the way, and this concept of a bike boulevard is nothing more than taking a quiet residential street that parallels a busy street. In this case, let me back up. In this case, directly below it, if I had a pointer, I'd get to it. But we have busy boulevards on either side of Vista. You can see the lines down here. Broadway above or below, and above is 4th Street. Vista provides a parallel, safe, and in fact very attractive route, except right now it's got stop signs on every block, and so it's not a great through street for riding a bike. How we can mitigate that is using traffic circles and other traffic calming devices, such as diverters, and create the type of street that you as a bicyclist or a motorist can roll down, go quietly through a traffic circle intersection, and continue on without coming to a full stop unless there's a car coming in from the side, which on these streets is about 200 to 400 cars a day. And if you know anything about traffic, you know that's nothing. Consequently, traffic circles work very well under these conditions. And we do street markings such as in Berkeley, defining the space and inviting people to go for a ride. They're always used, and sometimes they're pretty like this and used well. Sometimes they're misused, such as this, and I don't know what to do. We do signage to indicate what we're doing is creating a parallel transportation system for those of us that don't feel comfortable mixing it up with cars on Glendale Boulevard or pick your busy street out here. There oftentimes in our older neighborhoods we have grid systems where 1 block away we have a residential street that goes to the same place, but we don't even think about that as motorists because that's not the most direct route. And in fact, Colin and I were talking about this earlier today. A big part of our education and turning people who used a bicycle as a child into an urban bicyclist or a rider is to wake them up to the realization that their route to work would be completely different if they're doing it by bike than if they're driving it. And in fact, that's those of you that are experienced cyclists know that. You can take these side streets and be as efficient, maybe more efficient, than being out on the major boulevards. And so once we teach adults that, and they recognize there's a parallel route to get to wherever they're trying to go, all of a sudden that anxiety goes away. They can see themselves riding on residential streets. Consequently, that's part of the training and part of teaching people how to be urban cyclists. Let me back up because I forgot one point related to these bike boulevards, and that is the traffic circles. We had originally designed that 1.5 miles with 5 traffic circles, but in the final public meeting that we opened it up after and showed them what our design was, the neighborhood came together and said, "That's good, we're happy for you, and we'd like 2 more traffic circles at these intersections because they're just as dangerous or complicated as these others, and we like the idea of slowing down traffic in this neighborhood." We sold that Vista Bike Boulevard. We thought we'd be selling it because we were selling it as a bike-friendly city. What we learned was there were nobody that was really opposed to bicyclists, but they were really excited about us slowing down traffic in their neighborhoods. And people that were blowing through stop signs at 2 a.m. because they were drunk leaving Belmont Shore to head back to Orange County. Consequently, by using the traffic circles as part of their traffic calming program in that neighborhood, they were quite popular. Let's talk about Sharrows for a moment. This is a new tool in our toolbox. Just a raise of hands, do you know what a Sharrow is? Oh, well, look, this is sophisticated. About half of you know. It's a new tool that indicates to motorists where they should expect bicyclists to be, and it indicates to bicyclists where they should be on the street to promote safe sharing of the street. In some cases, it's right out in the middle of the lane where there's not enough space over on the right side to safely direct bicyclists because it's too narrow. They're in the door zone, and you don't want to be squeezed there by a passing car. In Long Beach on 2nd Street through Belmont Shore, we applied to the federal government to do an experiment there with an enhanced Sharrow. That is a Sharrow designating that lane as a shared lane, but then we simply put down a 6-foot wide green stripe under it. We call that the green lane. Talk about the sky falling. Talk about, we had people complaining before the paint was dry. One of the neighbors thought that this was the worst idea that we could ever do. And we had talked to the business community, because this is a very healthy business community through this area. It's only 17 blocks, but it's a thriving business district. They bought into it, and but everybody was surprised at how anxious this made motorists feel, because we didn't change the law in California to do this, and in fact all we're doing is articulating existing law differently. In California, this is where you're supposed to be riding a bike if there's not enough room to share that space off to the side. Consequently, but that's a new idea to a lot of motorists, and it's a new idea to a lot of cyclists, right? If there's one thing we can agree on is we haven't done a very good job of communicating to bicyclists what right use is, and we haven't done a very good job of communicating to motorists how to interact safely with cyclists. This green paint raises that conversation immediately for the 40,000 motorists that drive this route daily and the 500 cyclists that ride this route daily. By the way, it was only 350 cyclists that were riding this daily before we put the green lane in, because we counted them. After the green lane went in, 4 months later we counted again, and we had a 30% increase in the number of riders. Now, so what has happened is the green lane with 30% more cyclists with fewer crashes. We had, it's statistically void, The year before, there had been 6 crashes with cars and bikes. A year after we put this in, our anniversary will be June next month. We've only had 3 crashes. We've cut the number in half, you could say, but it's all, and they're minor. They're all 3 caused by stupid cyclists. One of them hit the back of a car that was backing up. He was distracted. Another one didn't have any brakes, and he went through an intersection and hit a car that was crossing. He didn't get hurt either. And the third was a drunk cyclist. These things happen. But you know what? From an engineering point of view, we have fewer crashes. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that we've raised the profile of this street as a shared lane. And then lastly, we have received an award from the Institute of Transportation Engineers for this design because it has changed the thinking about shared space and raised the profile of this space to make it a teaching tool nationally. And so, yes, we've reduced crashes, we've increased the number of bicyclists riding on this street, and we've affected the conversation. We also had a party when we cut this. This is surprising to elected officials generally at how passionate bicyclists are about our place in the street. One of the organizing tenets we have in the bicycling world is that we've all had a close call with a car recently. Is it different in Glendale? No. And consequently, when the authority figure, in this case Long Beach, puts something down like this that communicates that we respect cyclists and that we expect you to share, as motorists, we expect you to share this space, that is a validation. That is a invitation by the authority figure to get out there and ride a bike. And that is rarely communicated in this part of the world to bicyclists as an invitation to be out there. And in fact, we usually get the opposite signals. We get either no communication or we get something with a circle and a slash through it saying, don't be here. And so this is one of the key differences that has occurred in Long Beach, and we're reaping the rewards of it now. We have a better safety record, we have more people riding bikes, and we have a sense of community pride about this campaign and about Long Beach's role in doing something fresh and different. You know, Long Beach has a chip on its shoulder because it's never been seen as a place where you would expect to find innovation or something fresh and new and different happening. We're getting traction on this. People are feeling good about this, and they're encouraging us to do more. So we're doing more. We'll only run through a couple different things. We've got a bike share program. Some of you that have been down have ridden on these bikes. We've got a fleet of bikes to share with people to see what's going on. We're installing bike racks all over the place. I need to update this slide because we did install 400 bike racks last year, and we did get $1.2 million in stimulus money to buy more bike racks. But because of the economy, we were able to buy 2,000 racks instead of 1,000 racks. And so those are showing up now. And that in itself is a big splash. To put 2,000 racks out in a year is about 1,800 more than what most cities do on an annual basis. And and there's all these art racks such as this that and interesting things that cause people to think and cause them to see that this can be a part of what's new and fresh and different in Long Beach. Here's one of the problems that we have. This is again Belmont Shore. See the green lane out here. It's a very healthy retail district. Everybody wants to be there, and bikes pile up on the street as a consequence. And so one of the next things we're doing in Long Beach is developing the concept of a bike corral, where in complete partnership with the adjacent businesses, taking out 1 or 2 car parking spaces and replacing them with bike racks such as that, or in Portland such as this. Portland, again, we're learning the lessons from them. They put these in and started testing them, and they started noticing that the ones that they put in front of coffee shops and ice cream stores were quite popular. And it was because they could, as a family or as a couple, ride their bikes to that place, have rock star parking immediately in front of where they're sitting on the sidewalk, sipping their $4 latte or ice cream, and living a healthy, active lifestyle. it was a surprise, actually, to business owners in downtown Portland that not, you know, it's those types of businesses, cafes and coffee shops, that where the concept works pretty well. And so in downtown Long Beach, right in this, we'll be taking out this parking space, and the $800 a month revenue that we have off of that parking meter, and replacing that with a bike rack, because that's one of the hottest, you can't see it here, but where that says sale, that's one of the hottest bike shops in the city, fixie shop. And a lot of young people hang out in this area. So we're buying 50 bike corrals, and we'll be installing 50 in Long Beach between now and the end of the year, in places where business owners want us to put them, because they can see where they can displace one customer parking with anywhere from 8 to 12 customers parking directly in front of their store. And so there's no coercion here or duress. They're doing that because they see that they can amplify their parking capacity by simply changing their strategy. They're also, by the way, let me back up. We're also developing the concept of a bike-friendly retail district, where, such as this, in the East Village, we look at everybody that lives within 1 mile. And in most cases, in Bixby Knolls, the one where we've done the study so far, we have about 10,000 households within that 1 mile range. If we can influence those people to shop at Bixby Knolls, or in this case East Village, that's some of the cheapest advertising, some of the cheapest promotion they can do. And if they can get those people to change their habits and not get in their cars, then if they get in their car, then they're going to either go to Lakewood, or they're going to go to Orange County, or someplace in Los Angeles. If they never get into their car, then they stay a local customer. And so these businesses are starting to recognize that bike customers not only use less space once they get there, but they're a more loyal customer to cultivate. Consequently, again, we're privileging local businesses and those that would do business locally. Bike station, you may or may not be familiar with this. Long Beach in 1996 was the first city to develop the concept. It's a European concept of parking your bike in a downtown area and hopping on the blue line to go to Los Angeles or someplace else. That's all being developed. A couple of you know about the Bike Hub. It's coming. It's in place now. This is another co-op project. It's not a City of Long Beach project, by the way. It's while we're nurturing it and supporting it, it's all about taking bikes and recycling the bikes that are existent within our neighborhoods or within our communities. It's not a new concept. Los Angeles has done a good job of showing us the way, and we're simply following their lead. In fact, here's a picture of the microwave. One of we were students of that. And then part of that $17 million that we've raised, about $500,000 of it is going to inoculate every kid in the Long Beach Unified School District in the next 3 years. That's money that could have gone into resurfacing streets for automobiles. It could have gone into lots of different things, but it's Metro money that is going into bicycle education. Metro's money is more flexible than ever before, and if there is political will to support it, Glendale can access those funds for bike education. We have that pot of money. We have another $500,000 to teach police officers how to enforce bike laws. We have money for bus operators to safely interact and be trained on a regular basis on how to interact safely with bicyclists. We have money to do adult bicycle education. We have league-certified instructors in Long Beach that are volunteering, in most cases, their time to teach adults how to be good bike commuters. So it goes beyond the asphalt is what I'm attempting to get at here. We've got plenty of that $17 million going into bike boulevards and protected bike facilities and standard bike lanes. But we have an awful lot of it going into promotional campaigns such as bike education for kids. Here's one of the adult cycle instructors. And then activities and festivals. We do a bike festival in Long Beach each May. We just completed this one. Anybody know what a skid contest is on fixie bikes? Explain what that is.
Well, fixie bike typically doesn't have brakes, but the way you stop,
it has brakes.
Yeah, it doesn't have handbrakes. You stop by locking up your feet which stops on the wheel. So typically what happens is you have to skid to a stop. And so what's become a big thing to do is there's a competition to see who can skid the farthest.
So that's what he's doing. They pedal as hard as they can for half a block, and then lock the rear tire so it's skidding, and it's the longest skid, right? And so they shift their weight up onto the front tire, lifting the weight off of the rear tire so that it's just skipping along the asphalt, and then they're balanced up here on the front tire for about half a block. Isn't that exciting? And then bike racing, typical stuff. I like this one because we celebrate surfing in Long Beach, and that's the nexus with bikes. We've also are recognizing that, let me get to that picture, because this is about the law and safety, but it's really about changing social norms. We really see the opportunity to differentiate Long Beach from everybody else. And as an economic development tool, that is our unique opportunity. And so we also recognize that to do this effectively, we need to normalize it a la Copenhagen or Amsterdam, and that is where it doesn't require Lycra to get out there and go for a ride. The woman on the upper left is Andrea White. She is the entrepreneur for bike stations around the country. She's one of the experts on it, and she's a clothes maven or hound or whatever, and she likes to, so she's the one that organizes this whole style show to indicate or to show that what we're attempting to do in Long Beach is make this a normal daily activity where the bicycle is really an appliance or really just a transportation tool. We're not there to, there's plenty of people that are into the religion of bicycling or into the gearhead thing of bicycling, but Andrea's agenda is to normalize it and to make it so that pretty girls can ride bikes in normal clothes around Long Beach. That's her definition of a new social norm and success. One of the really cool things that came out of this last bike festival is this film, Riding Bikes with the Dutch. And Michael Ball, he lives in Long Beach. He went to Amsterdam and spent 3 weeks with his family filming the daily life of bicyclists. And he came back to Long Beach about a year ago with the intent of doing something of a contrast to Amsterdam in Southern California. What he discovered was that we were emerging as this next generation of great bike cities, and so it evolved into something of a love letter to Long Beach about the bike culture that's emerging there. I encourage you to consider coming down to the next show on June the 10th. Michael will be putting this in a variety of festivals and independent film forums around the country. But it is another example of where by setting a direction, saying we want to become a great bike city, and then inviting people to participate in that in whatever way they can contribute, has presented this smorgasbord of art and art of all types coming into the bicycle conversation. I'm not as articulate as I would like to be on that, but it's something that we're learning as stewards of our community, that there's a lot of people who want to participate in this conversation, and really all we need to do is nurture them to do that. And that includes eccentrics such as these three guys that on the first Sunday of every month they pull out their vintage bikes, and about 80 of them go for a ride. It's a slow ride. They never get above about 3 miles per hour. And I'm serious. I've rode with them at Christmas time. And see the guy in the middle? He's a millionaire in Orange County. He's got 100 bikes such as this, and he just pulls one out and takes it for a ride. And they all look like Boeing engineers retired, but in fact they're bike idiots, and they have bought into this thing as a passion. And so that's what Long Beach is attracting, is people like that, and then people who would just pile up bikes for no apparent reason whatsoever. So here are the lessons that we have learned in Long Beach related to innovation. It's ABCs, as you notice. First, we adopted a big, hairy, and ambitious vision. And that really is authentic. That really is the citizens of Long Beach saying that they want bikes for all the reasons that I've discussed. Secondly, the electeds have heard that, and they empowered the city manager and professionals to go about doing that campaign. That's where you are in the city, by the way. Based on what I've heard, there's plenty of citizen input in this, and we've had professionals from Glendale come to Long Beach, and where did you guys go? In Berkeley, in the Bay Area, last month. April. Yeah, so they're getting around. They're developing the political. I mean, the political will's there. You're developing the professional skills to make that happen. And then the third part is, and the lesson that really needs to be driven home, if it's not obvious, is that we're doing a tablespoon of planning and an ocean of implementation. We're really putting a bunch of stuff out there for people to respond to, and we're getting a very positive response back, consequently giving us not only validation, but more courage to do more. That is the winning formula in Long Beach right now. Here are the political leaders that are making that happen. They're backed up by citizens that buy into this stuff generally. The notion of doing sharrows along Honolulu through that retail district, I think, makes some sense, and the potential of doing a green lane in that area makes some sense in communicating that this is a significant bike route. The notion of doing the green lane on Broad, was it Broad that we were talking about? Brand has some potential. Again, it's about inviting people to come to the place on a bike and having the authority figure make that statement. Had we talked about the concept of protected bike lanes on Glendale? Was it the speedway that you were talking about? Glen Oaks. We took a look at Glen Oaks, and as you are aware, it's three-car travel lanes with a bike lane and parking. And there's some conversation about that it would not only serve a little bit for traffic calming, but it's not necessary to have three-car travel lanes through there. The notion of reversing where that bike lane is, pull that parking out, and taking that outside lane, and then reorganizing the space and just thinking about it differently, there may be potentials in that as well. Was there something else that I'm forgetting? Oh yeah, isn't that exciting? The North Brand, north of Wilson, right?
The freeway.
Yeah. I'm the guy from out of town, and I don't know the history of this. There may be good reasons that nothing's moved on that. But what a picturesque boulevard that you have there. And yeah, the notion of thinking creatively about that, my guess is you think of that as part of the jewel of your city, right? It's probably a point of pride. Historically, it's an interesting story. Was it the Red Line that went up? And so yeah, and to now think about that again, and to do some sort of median through there, or something that would really, it's a beautiful place now, and then how could it be better? Again, that's you get to make those decisions. But you've got an interesting place. You're in an interesting place in that you have some places on the street that if you just started looking at them differently would probably change the conversation completely. I know there's plenty of streets here that are impacted by rush hour traffic and that it would be politically impossible to get something done. However, there are these other places such as Brand that are really interesting places and aren't part, and my take on it is, could be thought with some fresh thinking, you might come up with some interesting ideas and things that would not take away from where you've been, and in fact it might even honor where you've been as a community, but it would open up new possibilities then. The possibility of riding a bike around Glendale and the invitation to go for a bike ride around Glendale is the baseline possibility here. It's, we don't have to get, if we moved 3% of the population into riding a bike on a 10% basis, you know, a fractional amount. You guys that ride bikes all the time, you know that would be a fundamental shift in where we are today. And it would change the conversation completely. But most of us need to see the place on the street, and we need to think that if that we're going to be respected if we're out there on that bike before we'll ever take that leap of faith. Is it different in Glendale? No, I doubt it. But that's really the opportunity that we have, and it's not necessarily low-hanging fruit. It's going to take a campaign, but you've got the space on the street to do that. And to my knowledge, and I'm here to learn. There's not going to be a growth spurt in Glendale over the next 20 years, is there? Probably not. You're built out, right? It's going to be the same general bones in the next 20 years. The question is, let's look at it fresh. If we're willing to look at bicyclists and pedestrians as a part of the transportation mix here, now what does it look like? Because I assure you that conversation is relatively fresh here. The engineers that have been to Long Beach are primed and ready to have that conversation. Yeah, if they had the political will today, and let's make this assertion, and then you tell me if I'm off base. If the political will was clear and if it was formulated and validated today, your engineering staff within the next year would put all of that low-hanging fruit out there and say, here's what we can do. But I think that's the missing link right now, or that's one of the missing links. Is that a fair statement?
We're headed in that direction.
Right.
Yeah.
But so my point is, you've got some people that are waiting to get the message from the city council to move in that direction. And the quicker that citizens of this town can articulate that and get that message delivered, the quicker you're going to see them shifting their resources and within the existing budgets, if they move 5 to 10% of Measure R funds into bike projects, it costs us about 20 cents a foot to put a stripe down. That's to put a bike lane in is, generally speaking, referred to in our world as decimal dust, because it's hardly worth accounting for in terms of the cost of that paint. So again, if we decide to move in that direction, there's a number of things that can probably get done without any significant impact on the existing budgets. It's just a change in the priority. There were some other hands. Yes, sir.
I think it was the project on 3rd Street that you showed where you eliminated one lane and converted that to shrubbery and parallel parking, where you had the bike lane next to it. Can you tell us roughly what something like that costs on a per block basis?
That total 17 blocks is costing us $640,000. So you can split that by about, I think it's 15 blocks. But just to know, most of that money is going into traffic signals. We're putting in specific traffic signals that hold the bike traffic so that motorists can make the left turn, and then hold the left turn so that bicyclists have the right-of-way. And so, the rest of that is paint and a little bit of concrete. And of the $640,000 that we're spending on that, clearly at least $500,000 of that is in signal lights, and some more into engineering, and then the rest into paint and a little concrete. Yes, sir.
Are you doing any coordination with the neighboring communities?
Every one of them, all the time. It's a pretty robust conversation that we have, because we've learned that it's easier to it's easier just to share it with them, get it out there, and people don't get too. They'd rather know what's coming at them than be surprised, generally speaking. And so, and that's not to say we reach everybody, but generally speaking, when we show up to construction, we've got the momentum. We're not surprising anybody. So yeah, and maybe as you saw in the presentation, it's not an unpopular conversation. We have neighbors that are jealous of those that are doing it, neighborhood organizations, and are inviting us to come in and saying, we want to be next.
Has this project had an impact on the cities around Long Beach and the way that they're thinking about funding their spaces?
Yeah, and I'd say Southern California in general has taken notice, and that's one of the things I've learned as a new guy in town is how important the sibling relationships are between cities. And so, yeah, it's one thing for Santa Monica to do it or Pasadena to do it. But when a backwater place like Long Beach does it, then as I've heard it reported in Los Angeles, well, you know, if they can do it, why can't we? Long Beach? Come on. Why are you laughing? Yes, sir.
Question really for Colin. Can you tell us or remind us about the location and potential for a bicycle boulevard where we have fewer stop signs?
Bicycle Boulevard. Oh, okay. They haven't really called it a bicycle boulevard, but part of the project that we're working on for the Safe and Healthy Streets project is what we're calling the Riverdale Maple Corridor, which is in South Glendale, and it's basically Riverdale from San Fernando to Central, and then cutting down to Maple, and then Maple all the way across the city. That's designated to be a bike and pedestrian priority corridor. And we're seeking to make improvements for bicyclists and pedestrians all along that corridor so that it becomes not only a part of the larger bike network, but from a pedestrian perspective, that it becomes a spine for potential walking routes in the area. So we'd like to see a lot of improvements along there so that people will use that corridor for biking and walking. And it includes some of the things that Charlie was talking about, you know, where we'd like to put in some traffic circles in a couple of places to help slow traffic down, but still create a situation where the bicyclist doesn't lose their momentum and has to stop necessarily, those kinds of things.
Might they remove stop signs?
That's going to be the toughest thing to sell, really. They're very nervous about it at this point in time. There's a lot of hesitation. You know, people, they're worried about taking out a stop sign, and then if there's a crash or you know somebody gets hurt, then the city gets into trouble for it. So they're a little nervous about that. So like right now, there's a traffic circle at Riverdale and Columbus, but it's also a four-way stop. And technically, when you put in a traffic circle, usually you have no stops. But it's still sort of a new concept, you know, for a lot of cities and for a lot of people in this country. Whereas in other places, it's much more common. So I think it's going to be a matter of just getting used to it as well. Just becoming sort of something that's familiar. I mean, I know the first time I, driving a car, got to the Riverdale-Columbus traffic circle, I wasn't really sure what to do because I'd never driven through an intersection with a traffic circle before. So there's going to be that sort of getting used to these things as well, I think.
Yes, sir.
Is there any plan for the city of Los Angeles regarding biking? Because we're talking about Santa Monica, Long Beach, like mid-sized cities.
Well, it gets back to that question of influence. I think that Los Angeles is starting to see what's going on in the surrounding cities and are accelerating their planning process. Put a different way, how long have they been thinking about sharrows? They've been studying sharrows for at least 2 years now. And they're starting to recognize that, and people are frustrated. If you live in Los Angeles, you may be as...
I've been in Montrose.
Yeah.
But I've been here for 3 years only, and I live in East Hollywood the first 2 years. And I didn't see much.
Yeah. They haven't. They've had a number of reasons why nothing's happened there, but my sense of it is just as Long Beach and other cities are starting to access the money, and that's what they ask us. Where'd you get the money? How'd you get it? And that's what drives these conversations oftentimes. The other thing that's happening though in Los Angeles is the city council itself is starting to engage. Gil Garcetti is an example of somebody who is becoming more aggressive on this, for his district at least. And that combined with the activity around the region, and the fact that we just got a $16 million Renew grant that more money is starting to come in to do these active living health interventions, and a lot of that is doing bike plans for different cities. The South Bay area is doing 5 cities are coming together to do a trail plan, and a number of different interventions that are happening on the diet side of the obesity question. So, as the infrastructure, as the the professional infrastructure gets built up around this city of people promoting these things, and guys like me and Colin that are getting paid to promote these things and bring fresh ideas in and show how a traffic circle might work, or these other techniques that we're talking about, that's having an influence on Los Angeles, having an influence on all these other cities around. So yeah, I think it has. But Los Angeles' problem is that it's 5 times bigger than the next biggest city in LA County, which is Long Beach. And so we've only got 450,000 people. We're much more nimble than they are. But they're starting to recognize they're leaving money on the table by not doing this. And that's really waking them up. In a marketplace where if you don't ask for the money, you won't get it, and you do ask for it, and you will get it, they're starting to figure out they should ask for the money. Yes?
With respect to public transit in Long Beach, have you had conversations or gotten buses to put more accommodations for bicycles?
Every bus has a bike rack. Long Beach Transit is owned by the city of Long Beach as well, and so that's part of our strength, is that we own everything and can maneuver with these different assets. And yeah, Long Beach Transit is about as bike-friendly a transit agency as I have seen around the country. And in fact, I'm quite proud of them for when they're an example of a city agency that didn't wait around for us to come to coach them on how to do this. They see themselves as professionals. When they saw that the city was moving in this bike-friendly direction, they went out and created their own training video for their bus drivers that showed how to interface safely with cyclists. And so when I showed up to say, we've got some money for you to spend on this training video, they said, well, here it is. And I said, well, great, we'll spend that money on something else, and we are. But that's the point, is that this political will that we've established has given plenty of people a chance to respond, and Long Beach Transit is an example of that. Now, one of the places where they're behind is, are you familiar with downtown Long Beach at all? The Transit Mall? We've got the Blue Line comes down to Long Beach, and that First Street is a dedicated transit mall, meaning there's no cars or bicycles on that route, and that's one of the reasons it's a dead zone. And so we're in effect in conversation with Long Beach Transit to open that up, to put sharrows on that transit route so that bicyclists can use that route versus the 2 busier arterials on either side. So yeah, they're like every state or city agency, they're being quite responsive to us, and it's exciting actually. Yes.
I was privy to go to the street summit this year, which for people who didn't go was just a loose sort of gathering of all the bicycle organizations and transportation organizations, and you spoke there.
And there was about 500 people there, wasn't there?
Yes, there was.
It was a good turnout.
We saw Occidental College, which is in your area in Glendale, or part of it. Yeah, doing things for the school. But the question I was wondering is, do you think that there'll be a street-sized summit for cities, so where somebody like Glendale or Long Beach or Los Angeles can get together with Santa Monica or Hermosa or somebody else? I'm just mentioning cities randomly now, but get together and discuss what's worked in area, might this work in your city, and in that case propagate what we really need to see is taking back the streets to people and bikes as opposed to this thing called the car.
Well, yes, and I happen to, as a marketer, I happen to think we're onto something pretty smart. And so if we just show people how intelligent it is, and we notice this in Long Beach now, where these parking impacted neighborhoods, you give up a lot when you give up your car parking space on and you may not get it back. You may end up 10 blocks away. Consequently, it's a smart urban tool, and we're starting to recognize that there, and people are starting to see it. We're not waiting around. Long Beach is going to be inviting you and everybody else to come down in the fall. We'll be doing a ciclovia, which is shutting down a major part of our downtown area along the beach, and inviting people from Glendale to come ride their bikes in downtown Long Beach on a beautiful Sunday afternoon. And we expect then that, our intent is to share what we're doing, and hopefully it will serve as a catalyst for the conversation in other places.
I'd settle for shaming us.
Now, there's a growing conversation around, and that bike summit's a good example of that, of where elected officials from several cities were there, bike activists were there, journalists were there. What's going on in Southern California is going on around the country. People, our generation of political leaders is starting to embrace this stuff. And there's a cliche in my business, and that is all this town needs is 12 funerals. And that is oftentimes there's 12 people that are holding up progress because of their positional power. And so once they're out of the way, you with me now? Once they're gone, things can move forward. But until they give up their power, things are stagnant. And oftentimes, I mean, that really does happen. And I think we're seeing that to some degree in Los Angeles, that some of the old guard are retiring or moving on, and the fresh Gil Garcettis of the world as council members are coming in, and they've got a spine, they've got a backbone. What's your council person's name that came to Long Beach?
Oh, Laura Friedman.
Laura Friedman. There's a good example of a classic new elected official in Southern California. You know, she's not a radical by any means, and she recognizes the utility of thinking fresh in the public space. And so she is doing her job. She's doing her role in one, learning about the options that are available, two, hosting these kinds of activities and the place grant and so forth, and then traveling around the country and seeing these things being applied and becoming a effective advocate for this livable communities agenda. She didn't have to do that. Nobody has to do that, but she's recognizing that there's real potential there. For those of us that are in the business of attracting the creative class, those people that make their living with computers and cell phones and thinking and creating content, they can live anywhere, we can live anywhere, and we'll live in a place that nurtures us, that we can carry on an active, healthy lifestyle. And in fact, that was Austin's key to success in the 90s in getting those high-tech companies to move from San Jose to Austin. And that is, as soon as the tech executives would get off the airplane, the relocation professionals would put them on a helicopter and they'd fly them over Town Lake, and they'd show them people recreating. They'd show them people riding bikes and running on Town Lake and carrying on an active, healthy lifestyle. They sold them on the emotional pitch of Austin as a great place to live, and then they showed them where they could put their chip making plants and the statistics about workforce and so forth. That was that was Austin's winning formula in the 90s in relation to high tech, and that's what Richard Florida has written about in the creative class, about the creative class, and that's what Long Beach is doing. We're recognizing that Boeing is not going to be building any more $5,000 job facilities in Long Beach, and the movie business is not going to be moving to Long Beach. And so our future has more to do with attracting professionals that want to carry on an active, healthy lifestyle in the Southern California area, but not necessarily doing that in Los Angeles or Orange County, and providing them a option or a different a flavor to choose from. So yeah, that's how this fits in our overall picture. Yes, sir.
In addition to Laura Friedman, are there any other people within the city of Glendale that are getting the message about bikes?
I defer to Colin on that.
Yeah. I'd say yes. The answer to that is, I mean, the remainder of the city council, for the most part, has been vocally supportive of the Place Grant Safe and Healthy Streets project that I've been promoting. They may not have been as actively involved as, say, Laura Friedman has been, but they've definitely been interested. And also just the fact that there were city staff and city officials, or city staff members really, who were willing and interested to go to Long Beach for we took 2 trips to Long Beach so they could go down there and see what was going on. And then I took a group of city staff members to Berkeley on an overnight trip, and they were interested in that. And I think that's starting to show in the fact that they just had a Transportation and Parking Commission meeting the other night where they announced that they're ready to update the Bike Master Plan, and they presented a whole timeline and step-by-step process by which they plan to do that. So I think there are definitely people within the city structure in terms of staff, especially, who are interested in doing this. I think they just needed to see that there was support for it from the community, really, and they're recognizing that, I believe, and so that's why things are moving forward. Does that answer your question?
The last thing I want to do then, well, go ahead.
I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
I'm curious if you could tell us anything about how that political will how it evolved in Long Beach. How is it that the city council finally came to decide, okay, we're going to become the most bike-friendly? Do you know the history of that?
Yeah, I do. There's maybe 4 factors that are key in that. First of all, there's an active bike community. The Long Beach Cyclists is part of that are self-described nerdy bicyclists. And then there's the lycra-clad racing groups over here of the type that Mark Bixby is associated with. And so they're all, the lycra-clad types and the geeks are involved in this conversation, but from 2 different worlds. And they all have relations with the city council members, and some had worked in their campaigns, and some are just personal friends. So they got elected. They got their friends elected to the city council, and it wasn't an overt bike-friendly crowd. It's just people who aren't hostile to bikes, but not necessarily passionate about it either. And then we have a new city manager. One of the key components, Pat West, moved to Long Beach from Paramount, adjacent town, and rode a bike and could hear a voice of bicyclists in the community saying, we've got some natural assets here. Why don't we capitalize on them? Why don't we encourage this bicycle thing? And so with the city council and hearing their friends say that, friends as citizens and influential people, a city staff that was receptive to that and wanting to accommodate city council members, and then having Sumi Gant in place, who used to work for Metro, now works for the city of Long Beach, knows how the system works in Metro and Caltrans and other funding sources, putting her on that. Those were the critical links. And then Sumi started raising the money. And once they started seeing money coming in for these projects, that could have been used for other things, but the city chose to use it for bikes. All of a sudden now we've got funding to do this. Maybe we should take it a little more seriously. And because really all she was doing is taking the Bike Master Plan that was produced in 2001 and putting it in the form of grants and putting those to Metro. So in one section of the Bike Master Plan, it talked about educating kids. And so she took that language and said, okay, Metro, we'd like to get $500,000 to get all of our kids through this program in the next 3 years. And Metro said yes. So it's not rocket science, it's just putting professionals in place to act on the opportunities that they see. That's how we've gotten to where we are today. Oh wait, one more thing. We've been through a couple of different council elections, and all of these people have been re-elected. Nobody has lost their political seat because of their pro-bike attitude. And I think that's as good a validation as any, because we don't have anybody out there taking shots at us on this. They're seeing how fresh money coming in, Citizens are supportive of this. We're getting some things down the street that's getting us the sort of attention that we're looking for from outside. The LA Times is writing nice stories about us. Yamaha is expressing some interest in what we're doing. You know, we're being supported in that, and we're continuing it. I think that's enough. Let me just close with, I really appreciate the invitation to come. You know, I am proud to be on the team in Long Beach. It is a inspirational opportunity for me as a professional. It's giving me a chance to take what I've learned in this career since 1990 and really do some cutting-edge stuff. One of the things that I'm attracted to about Southern California, and have been since I was 30 years old, is that you give yourself permission to be innovative here. And that's unique, you know. As a guy who innovates professionally, I feel more at home here than I did in Texas, because in Texas and other places they don't give themselves the license to think or the license to innovate outside. But that's part of the DNA around here. You know what a Skunk Works project is?
Yeah.
What is it?
It refers to related thinking to underground projects usually designed for covert operations.
Very good. And you know, that concept came out of Southern California, out of the aerospace industry. You know about this? Yeah. And so that's really what we're doing in Long Beach. We've got a Skunk Works project. We've got the mainstream stuff going on over here, and then we have this bike stuff that has the political will backing it up, has the money coming in, and is simply bypassing the naysayers within the bureaucracy. And that's why we're getting traction and we're moving aggressively in Long Beach. That's not unique to Long Beach. That's exactly the same story that Jeanette Sadik-Khan told us about New York City. And that is, Jeanette came in as an agent for Mike Bloomberg, the new mayor. Bloomberg saying, shake things up. And Jeanette saying, okay, what can we do with how can we think fresh about the public space in Manhattan? And they noticed that there were all of these islands of asphalt that were vacant and sterile. And someone said, why don't we make those green places? And so now there's about 500 places around New York City that they have green places. Some of them are no larger than 400 or 500 square feet or less. On a street corner someplace. And then, as you know, they have drastically changed Times Square, and made it in some cases they shut down traffic completely and made it a public plaza. And the sky didn't fall. And they just went through an iteration of city council elections where they started it out as a pilot project, and they decided to keep it because it's so overwhelmingly popular. That is the model of innovation that's happening today. And one other validation on that's exactly what they did in Portland, Oregon, to shine the light on the future there. And that is, they didn't count on the engineers that hadn't learned anything in 30 years and were fighting anything that was new and different. They brought in fresh voices. They gave them authority to move on a parallel track to where they had been. They gave themselves license to test, to innovate, to do pilot projects, and to try on new things. And that is the winning formula that I recommend that you look at in Glendale. Thank you very much.
Yeah.